Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today I'm going to talk about Derek Pratt, who is an English watchmaker who lived in Switzerland. We'll talk about him, but how I got there was sort of a fairly minor thing. I was trying to find out the source of the hour hands that had the great big ball on the end of it. Some I've heard called apples, some giant moons, and so forth. It turns out they're called observatory, and it's usually the hour hand with the big circle at the end, and then a stick for the minute hand. And they're very easy. Just at a glance, you can tell the minute and the hours on different ones. And I traced it back, at least the wristwatches, back to around 1990 and 1991. One was at a Christie's auction, and the other one was at a place called The Collected Man. And they said the dial is by Derek Pratt. Now, that was nice. I had no idea who Derek Pratt was. I thought maybe he was a designer, but it turns out he was really quite a watchmaker. As I mentioned, he was English, lived in Switzerland, was a very good friend of George Daniels, and they would collaborate on ideas, and they were back and forth about something, and each would check with the other about, oh, let's try this, or this looks interesting. Up at the top right, there's a completed prototype of the Rouleau Remontoir, 2009. And I really like that because you can see it's just taking a big plate and then putting things on, sort of as a test of concept. Now this, was done by Derek Pratt in 2009, and that was the same year he died. So he was never able to produce that himself. What he had done, he had gone to work in the 80s sometime for Urban Jurgensen und Sohner. And he put together this movement. It was called the UJS P8. And the movement, he did the movement, and he worked with Jean-Francois Mojon and Carrie Voutenlanen. And Carrie Voutenlanen had more of a minor role in it, but he was involved, and Jean-Francois Mojon also was in more of a secondary role, and Derek Pratt did most of the work on it. And he set up a detent escapement on it, and anyway, the watch that he made that came, the P8 went into a couple of years after he died, it won a Grand Prix award. It's sort of like, oh, okay. But this guy, in looking at it, it was just brilliant movement work. And what I want to do is that a very strange thing happened is that I mentioned that here he had the prototype working, and then he died. But some other guys took it over and started a company called Derek Pratt Watches and made something called the Derek Pratt Watch. So let's take a look at this little video, and then we'll come back and talk about this.
The original inspiration for the remontoir that Derek Pratt incorporated into his tourbillon pocket watches was taken from a small clock. The idea to use his remontoir in a wristwatch came prior to Derek's passing. Functionally, the remontoir regulates the power from the mainsprings, which is delivered to the escapement once every second, resulting in an extremely consistent power flow and thus better timekeeping. At the center of the remontoir is a rouleau-shaped ruby cam that is directly connected to the escape wheel. As the cam rotates, it is followed by the remontoir fork that moves back and forth, releasing power by the remontoir wheel, which recharges the remontoir spring that is directly coupled with the escape wheel. This process repeats every fifth beat of the balance wheel, exactly 1 second. The result is near perfect constant force to the escapement, and seconds hand beats dead seconds.
Oh, that was quite a quite a little video on his watch. What happened after Derek died was that some of his, I guess, proteges or apostles, perhaps, took up they had the prototype, the working prototype of what I call the Rudo Remontoir. And it's this wonky rotor-looking thing that spins around and rewinds and unwinds this little Remontoir spring. They really did a beautiful job to it. In addition to that, they have two floating barrels. And the barrels are set in parallel, which means they work together to keep the time constant. And that, with the Remontoir, this has got to be an amazing watch. They're available. They'll take a while to get. They're $160,000 each. And if you have that kind of money and you're interested in something like this, it'd be one of the best watches in the world. A mechanical watch, really something. Anyway, let me know what you think, and keep the hammer away from the piggy bank. And this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.